Okay, for this particular project, what we're going to be doing is using opacity settings as well as a blur, motion blur effect in order to create movement in our image. So in order to set this up, we're going to go to File, New, or click on New Project. And again, we're back in Photopea. We're going to choose Social Instagram size, so 1080 by 1080, 72 PPI or DPI. You can hit Create. And then for this particular image in project, we're going to be using this image from Pixabay of this athlete jumping at the beach. And so we're going to click free download, and we're going to download the 1920 by 1275 one. You may have to pass some sort of Google CAPTCHA. And then back in Photopea, we're going to go to File, Open, and Place, like so. We'll navigate to our image and we'll click Open. And it's going to open the image inside of the file that we have created so that the document is the correct size. Now I'm going to grab it from the corner with my Move tool right here. If I don't have the little transform controls, I can just check it in the options panel right here. And then I'm going to hold Shift and Option or Alt, depending upon what type of computer you're on. I'm going to resize it from the middle out so that it is about as tall as my canvas. And then I'm just going to scoot it over to the middle, and I'm going to center the subject of the photo in the canvas and then click Check in order to commit the change. Now, Photopea has a cool feature that allows us to cut out the image, and the way that that works is by going to Select and then Magic Cut. And it's going to open up this other window, and basically what you're going to have is an image on the left and an image on the right. And what we're going to do is sort of train the algorithm in terms of what is supposed to be part of the image and what is not. So you can see the things that are in green are what we keep, and then the things that are in red, so you see red around the outside right there, is not part of the picture. And so what we're going to do is we're going to help the algorithm understand what's supposed to be here. So I'm going to use the green tool right here, and I can use my brush size adjustment right here. The left and right brackets work as well. But basically, I'm just going to tell the algorithm that this arm is supposed to be part of the picture by just sort of drawing it, and it'll sort of recalculate, and it actually does a pretty surprisingly good job. And it does a pretty good job of keeping the hair in there. Now, it's not perfect. We're losing some of the strands on the edge, but for this particular project, we don't need them. So I'm going to click red right here because it also has this bit of the ocean that I don't want. So I'm going to zoom in here. I'm pressing Alt Scroll Wheel, and then I'm just, with the color red right here, I'm going to say, hey, oops, that's not red, so I'm going to undo that in just a second. So watch what happens. It just recalculated. It brought in all of that ocean because I trained it incorrectly. So I'm going to press Control Z or Command Z if you're on a Mac. And then I'm going to make sure that I have the red color right here. Now I just need to train it and say, hey, that's not part of this picture. And we'll see it recalculate and sort of reprocess and magically get rid of it there. And I'm pretty happy with it. Now, in the top right corner here, you have the option of New Layer or Raster Mask or Selection. And so I can make a selection back in the original file that looks exactly like this. I'm going to choose Raster Mask and hit OK. So now you're going to see that the image is masked out. If I disable my raster mask, you can see this is non-destructive editing. So I haven't permanently gotten rid of this. So I can right-click on this right here and then enable the raster mask again. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to duplicate this 3 times, okay? And you'll see what we're doing each time. I'm going to turn my transform controls off temporarily, and I'm going to go right-click, duplicate layer. I'm going to right-click, duplicate layer, right-click, duplicate layer, and now we have 4 different versions of the same thing, basically. And so what I'm going to do is with my Move tool, I'm going to make sure that Auto Select is unchecked. I don't want Auto Select here. And I'm going to, on my bottom layer, disable the raster mask. I actually don't want it at all. Notice that we got the hair back a little bit. All right, now in this second to bottom layer right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Move tool and I'm going to bring it down, right? So notice right here that masking has worked really well for us. I'm going to bring it down like so. And then on this second to the top layer, I'm going to bring it down sort of in between like so. And now we have, what we're going to do is we're going to use opacity settings and then a blur motion effect in order to create the sort of illusion that she is like jumping upward. Now clearly she is jumping upward, but we're going to sort of capture the motion lines, if you will. So I'm going to right click on my bottom, not bottom layer, but the lowest version of the subject in the picture. I'm going to convert this to a smart object. And I'm going to do the same to this bottom one right here, convert to smart object. Now that gets rid of the mask. And so this is a destructive edit, but I have the same layer right here, so it's less destructive. I could sort of go back to it. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to temporarily turn this, I'm going to keep this one on. What I'm going to do is turn this off, the bottom one, and this one off right here. So I have just these two. So on my sort of top middle, I'm going to go to Filter, Blur, Motion Blur. And I'm going to set a motion blur angle to 90 degrees. So that's basically straight up and down. I'm going to set the distance right here to 100 pixels. So I could actually increase this even more if I wanted to. I could make like 150 and I could see the preview. So actually, I think I like 150. I'm going to hit OK. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom one. But first, I'm going to set my opacity right here so that it's about 85%. And I'm going to repeat that process right here. So on this lower one right here, I'm going to go to Filter. I'm going to go to Blur, Motion Blur. And then again, 90 degrees. And then this time, I'm going to set this one even more. So I'm going to set this to 200 and we'll take a look and see what that looks like. So that's a pretty aggressive blur right there. And I'm going to set the opacity before. Remember, this one was at 85. I'm going to set this one to 65. So if I turn these back on, we're going to see they sort of get progressively more, I should say progressively less blurry. And so I think I actually went a little bit too extreme, but because I use the smart object, I can double click on my motion blur and I can change this. Let's set this back to like 75. I think I went way too far. So let me double check that. Oh, not 750. That's incredibly too many. All right, so 75 pixels. I'll hit OK. And then on this one, let's set this one motion blur, double click on it again. Let's make that one 150. All right, so 150. Okay. All right, so that creates that motion blur effect. And if I turn my bottom one back on right here, well, it sort of fills in the space and I can sort of get away with any problems that I may have with it. And so that's just a technique that you can use in order to create a sense of motion blur. I might refine the positioning right here, raise that one up just a little bit because there'd be, I think, more space in the way that would be gathered. Okay, so go ahead, save this as a photop file / Photoshop file, and then export it as a JPEG. So we're going to go and do that by export as JPEG and submit it to Google Classroom.